Here's the challenge though, a lot of people with liver issues like non-alcoholic steatohepatitis or just fatty liver from excessive carbohydrate consumption, inactivity would benefit from a ketogenic diet, but yet we need to make the bile from the liver and all that. So it's like you kind of need to restore this digestive health in order to adapt on a ketogenic diet.
For sure, and just knowing it's more than just taking a probiotic, so just sometimes slowly adjusting into a higher fat diet can give your body the tools it needs to be like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna induce gut trauma because I had 6 bacon and eggs to this morning or every morning for a week and now I feel like crap.
Right.
So slowly introducing certain fats and seeing what fats you do well with. Coconut oil is usually, sometimes it can be a really good starter fat and sometimes it can be a really negative starter fat. So it's all about the person and knowing where you are. So just because somebody does really well with 70% fat doesn't necessarily mean start eating 70% fat. Slowly work your way into it, especially depending on how athletic you are, or it's so personal. And I want people to know that, like, it's gonna be different for every single person, not because you're broken, but because your genetics and because of your past diets and your metabolism and who you are in this moment is different than who I am in this moment.
Hey friends, it's Mike Maltzo here with High Intensity Health. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're live with Emily Schromm. She's a nutritional therapist and personal trainer. We're going to take a deep dive into problems associated with getting into ketosis and how we can improve our digestive function, look at pancreatic function, liver, gallbladder health. I think that's a huge point, Emily. A lot of people kind of miss. We were talking offline about how some people they dive into a low-carb ketogenic style diet because they have blood sugar issues, and we know that pancreas can be challenged and that affects bile release.
Exactly. I think this is something that was such a huge epiphany when I was going through Nutritional Therapy Association, because I'm such a believer in a high-fat diet and I do really well in a high-fat diet, so I wanted the whole world to do well in a high-fat diet, and I would see some issues that came with it, whether it was digestive upset or some things that people are just saying it's common knowledge, like one, in order to have a regular bowel movement, you have to take magnesium, or in order to not have to run to the bathroom, just slow down MCT consumption. But there's something bigger than that, and I think we have to know anytime there's digestive stress, there is gut stress, and there's brain stress, and there's body stress. And so take that stuff seriously. If you're eating higher fat and it's causing issues with your gut, then dig into that and figure out why. And I was asking those questions. Why would that be? Is it because we're not breaking down the fat? And one thing that kept coming up was when you look at why we are going high fat anyway, we want to control blood sugar. That's the best reason why we eat high fat, right? We want to make sure that we have stable blood sugar throughout the day and we're not crashing and burning and tapping into cortisol. And one thing that can do that is eating more fat. But a lot of times when we eat more fat, we also forget that blood sugar, the pancreas, does a lot more than just control that cortisol levels and control our glucose levels, and it does a lot for digestion. So when we're already stressed out with blood sugar, we need to make sure it's taken care of, and so that we can break down the fat that we're eating, whether that's coming from a gallbladder side and a liver function side or pancreatic enzyme side, because both are tied into breaking down fat.
Yeah,
so it's
really
a big
key.
picture. Yeah.
Let's talk about the roles of the pancreas with regards to digestion. A lot of people think, oh, pancreas and insulin, but you talked about exocrine versus endocrine. Let's break that down.
Yeah, so pancreas is a pretty fascinating organ. It does a lot for us, and a big thing that it does for us is once we get, once our stomach passes through food, our pancreas releases enzymes and it tells our body, okay, it's time to start breaking down that fat. And so then we start releasing the bile in order to break down fat, because fat digestion, unless it's an MCT or a medium chain triglyceride, does not happen in the stomach. It happens after that. And so the pancreas does a big job. I mean, all those enzymes, all that, the CCK, all of the things that it does to break down the fat is happening after we actually consume and after stomach acid is doing its job. So big piece, we think of it always with insulin. We always think about it with blood sugar, which of course it does both, but we have to take care of it in both ways and make sure that if one is stressed, maybe your blood sugar is stressed, maybe it's also digestively being stressed as well.
Right. Okay, and then how does one go about assessing?
Great
you do the muscle testing, I know, but for people that are don't have, or maybe where can they find a practitioner like yourself, and then what are some other labs that you would look at?
Great question. So sometimes I just have people look at cues, right? So are you eating a high-fat diet and having digestive stress? Do you have bloating after you eat? Do you vary between constipation and diarrhea? Maybe you have some mental side effects of that. So maybe you're foggy brain, you're not thinking as clearly. All these things that ketogenic is supposed to fix, it's not working.
Right.
I'm still struggling with blood sugar issues. So that's one thing. Like, am I eating a lot of fat and I'm not getting the benefits of ketosis or ketogenic diet? Another thing that I have people look at is fatty acids. So when you look at all the fats that you're supposed to eat and all the benefits of it, your headaches are gone, you don't have dry skin, you don't have dandruff. If you are showing signs of inflammation or you're showing signs of healing really slowly or chronic injury, that's something that high-fat diets takes care of. So maybe we're not digesting that fat. And those are two of the things I look at. One thing that you can always look at with nutritional therapy, they look actually at signs and symptoms, and they look at gut trauma. So like, they actually palpate, so you can find a practitioner that's gonna palpate. I am just such a believer in AK, or applied kinesiology, because you can look at the big picture. So finding a chiropractor who believes in nutritional therapy, or a nutritional therapist that can really tie all the ends together. And there's lots of people that do it. You just have to ask the right questions.
Right. And maybe like on your partner or spouse, you could just palpate around the pancreas, and if it's pretty sore or like...
Yeah, so the pancreas point, it's actually within 7th intercostal, so it's not necessarily the pancreas itself that you're palpating. There's a point. You can always look up Chapman reflex or Bennett's reflexes for pancreas. And then also I always teach people the HCl and enzyme point. And so sometimes breaking down the stomach acid, do we have enough stomach acid to break down, which is more for carbs and proteins, but then enzymes you can also check into too. So those are 2 points you can find on your own and push and see, okay, is that tender? Because if that's tender, that's a warning sign that we are maybe missing that nutrient, and we're missing out on the full benefits of actually digesting this great food that we're eating.
Yeah, really interesting. So are these people that may have these other symptoms, the headaches and fatigue and things like that, are they achieving blood levels of ketones? Like, would they read that they're in a ketogenic type state, or they're just not absorbing the fat, so they're not even getting
That's a great question. So the people I've tested with, I mainly looking at their food logs. So no measures of ketone levels, no actual data on that. That would be a great thing to do, to see if there's people actually in ketosis that are still struggling because of pancreas function to get into that level.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about then what are the supplements, like what are the dietary strategies? So, and maybe a little scale back, like have you noticed a correlation between high fat, like maybe from animal products versus plant-based products, like that will affect the fat absorption and lead to these deficiencies?
I haven't noticed it. Usually the people that are coming to me are, whether it's just a general higher fat diet, so around 60% fat, sometimes a little bit higher, and good proteins. I mean, that's the biggest thing I look at is, are you eating greens? Are you eating good sources of proteins? And then what are your sources of fat? So obviously, as your viewers know, we're not looking at bad fats. We're not looking at trans fats or processed fats or oxidized fats. Really good coconut oils and avocado oils and all of the good stuff that we get from just knowing basic nutrition, right? So what I find with nutritionally, the support of it is, one, if they have some gut trauma, heal the gut first. That's the most important thing, because I've been talking a lot about the gut-brain health connection. So if the gut is in trauma and we have some sort of distension or leaky gut or whatever it is, we have to heal it or we're not going to get anywhere. But then we also have to find the source. So the second piece would be, is it because we're not breaking down food, and is that because of a fat digestion thing, or is it because of a protein digestion thing? So does that mean stomach acid? Does that mean HCl? Does it mean digestive enzymes, or does it mean pancreas support? And those 3 things are the things I see the most. Very few people need all 3. Usually it's 1 or 2 that can fix it, and then can really basically fix the symptom of why do we have leaky gut to begin with.
Sure. And so curiously, I didn't hear like food sensitivities and gluten in that. Like, so you really think it's more of a digestive issue? And
this is people that I've already tested. I already know their food
ruled
log.
them out.
Yeah, I'm looking at their food log. They took out gluten, they took out dairy, and they're still having some issues. Gluten and dairy are number 1. Soy and corn, obviously eliminating those are going to give you great benefits to begin with. But with that being said, I'm still seeing people that are following that protocol and still having a hard time getting into that fat burning state or getting the benefits of a keto high fat diet.
Sure.
And that's where I go back to, okay, something's happening with digestion or something's happening with the pancreas.
Very interesting. And the reason why I asked about the fats is because there's some research on animal fat. We know it's really healthy, right? But that it can induce metabolic endotoxemia through the leaky gut, right? So I was just trying to wrap my head around it if you found that more, because people think like a healthy ketogenic diet is bacon and eggs and a bunch of butter and not a lot of vegetables and plant-based fats, which we want to incorporate obviously into a healthy diet. So I was just curious there if you
that's a great question.
Yeah.
I will be asking that more and more. Maybe like percentage of fats from animals and percentage of fats from plants.
Yeah,
That's
very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the pancreas a little bit. You have some supplements you really like specifically for the pancreas?
I do. So, if it's just in general, they need enzymes. So if they're testing for enzymes, then anything from Apex Energetics, so any sort of protease, lipase, just a good enzyme with bromelain is great. Pancreatic enzymes, but sometimes when the pancreas is out of function, Bio 6 Plus is a great raw pancreas concentrate. There's a lot of different supplements that have it, but Bio 6 Plus is the one that I see the most of.
Biotics, right?
From Biotics.
Yeah, used to work for them.
So you did good. Biotics is great.
Yeah.
So Bio 6 Plus is great for pancreas.
Cool.
I also, if it's not a fat digestion thing and it's just a stomach acid thing, Betaine Plus HP, and you can get that from anywhere, just making sure it's a high enough dose that's gonna do something instead of you just popping a supplement.
Right. Let's pause there. So there's a lot of different questions I get on dosing on like hydrochloric acid, right?
Yeah.
Like people, traditionally we were taught like take it until you get a burning sensation.
Yeah.
Some people don't like that idea, right? So what do you
It's a great thought. So I can do muscle testing for dosing, so sometimes that works, but I really do like at some point it should burn. So if you take 3 and you don't feel anything, and then one day you take 3 and you feel something, then it's working. So there should be a point where we get to that, oh, now I feel it, because then I can de-dose. So I can go from 3 to 2, and then I can go from 2 to 1. Because I never want to take a supplement for the rest of my life.
Right.
I want to teach my body how to produce stomach acid. Am I not producing stomach acid because I'm deficient in zinc? Am I not producing stomach acid because I'm not in a parasympathetic state? There's so many things that tie into it. So if I'm constantly having to take 3, still getting symptoms, I take 2, and my symptoms come back, there's something else connecting to that. So for me with dosing, I say go start with 1 at every meal, then 2 at every meal until the symptoms subside, but you avoid that heartburn feeling. You never want to feel that warm sensation in your chest. And if you feel that, then we need to go 1 under. And then at the same time working on stress. I take oils and I rub on my vagal nerve.
Oh, wow.
So anything peppermint or anything that's very calming for you, if you rub, just try to stimulate vagal nerve. You probably know Dr. Karazian's gargling and
chewing
gagging and chewing and just trying to get those to stimulate, because vagal nerve is so tied into stomach acid production. But then also just like getting your mind right for I'm going to eat food.
Yeah.
I need to calm down. I need to not do it in my car. I need to not do it like I do.
I can put Instagram down for a minute.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, just really being connected with your food can be the best thing for that.
That's awesome. Okay, so that's a really good tip. I haven't heard that before on
Yeah.
the essential oils, hey?
Yeah, so any essential oils, there's a lot that are so I have one that's clove and lime, and those two are really great for calming. And then I have one that's a little bit more spearminty. So anything that you smell and you kind of relate to, like I smell this and I'm calm, and I
You
smell
resonate
this.
with it.
Yeah, it's something that, like for me, lavender is such a turnoff. Like people say it makes you calm, but I smell lavender, I'm like, I have no desire to put that on my body. Like
Interesting.
I'm very repulsed by lavender.
Yeah.
I think, maybe that means I need it. I don't know.
Right, it could be, hey?
Maybe it's reversed, but it's just something that keeps you calm and kind of teaches your body, okay, now I'm going to digest.
Yeah, really good tips. Okay, I think people will dig that. So
Good.
really, part of the whole process here, like you said, is supplements are a key. They're a bridge, but we don't want to depend on them forever. So get your endogenous parasympathetic system, innervating the nerves to get the juices flowing.
Connect your brain with your gut.
Yeah.
For sure.
Very succinctly said. I like that. So let's talk about another component of obviously fat. We talked about the gallbladder a little bit, but specifically what goes wrong there in gallbladder and liver health? What do you see? Because a lot of women are wearing cosmetics and things that have endocrine disrupting chemicals affect the liver and gallbladder.
Yeah.
Where do we start with assessment, and then how do we kind of treat
For sure. So I think almost everyone needs liver support because of all the toxins we're surrounded by. You could have the best makeup, you could have no bad cleaning products, you could do everything right, and you still will be missing out on some liver love. I call it liver love. We all need it.
That's good.
You do everything the liver does everything for us. So I think glutathione is just something we could always use. And so I use a cream for the liver. That's awesome. It's just like basically gets into my system very quickly, and I've seen great results with it.
Yeah.
But what I see with the gallbladder specifically is a lot of people on low-fat or non-fat diets switching very quickly to high-fat, or just adding more fats, and their gallbladder doesn't know how, their bile basically doesn't know how to break it down. So the bile becomes bad because we have no good fats, and now we're kind of in this catch-22 of now we're eating good fats, but our bile isn't able to break down those fats. So how do we figure out what kind of support we need? If we don't have a gallbladder, Beta Plus is one that basically ox bile, any sort of ox
supplemental,
bile.
you need
yes,
that.
that's one time where I'll say you'll probably need this for a long time.
Sure.
You know, you'll have to take this in order for your body to break down these good fats. But a lot of times what I've seen is when you switch very quickly to high fat and you cause kind of this like gut trauma because there's so much fat and your body doesn't know what to do with it because we don't have good gallbladder function, then beta TCP or some sort of taurine supplement is really key to making sure we're giving the bile the right tools so that it can do what it's supposed to do, because it's just not there.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is like long-term gallbladder support, if you don't have a gallbladder, is a poor thing because it's usually a liver thing that we need to look at. If it's a long-term, like I'm still not seeing results, I have to take this supplement, then liver is what I would look at.
Because it's upstream, the liver makes the bile and so on.
Yes.
Right. And phosphatidylcholine, we were talking about offline.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that almost all of us are deficient in, whether, it's something I'm learning a little bit more about, but the methylation process, and if we're not having if we're really missing methyl groups because of certain nutrients, or if we're just maybe having some sort of mutation that's not allowing us to produce the right stuff, phosphatidylcholine is always one that's the first to kind of be a warning sign that's so key for bile production and for liver function. So that's something really common.
Interesting. So have you dove down the rabbit hole of 5-MTHF and MTHFR testing? And I know PEMT is another big one in the phosphatidylcholine synthesis.
Totally.
You're doing some of the gene?
I haven't done the gene testing, but I know that, like myself, I haven't done it in my practice, but it's kind of crazy because I feel like 1 out of 2 of clients that come in, I just like have this gut instinct where I can see their liver and gallbladder, and I can see how fast they're responding to whether it's glutathione or whether it's a bile or taurine or whatever bile production support it is, and it's incredible like how strong that muscle test is. And so it's just my instinct, like I'm not going to say you have this, but I'm pretty sure you do.
Right. Very interesting. I have a good friend, Ben Lynch, who's really into that, so I was personally curious
Very
if you've
cool.
kind of gotten into that. But
I think it's fascinating.
yeah, interesting. And so, I mean, here's the challenge though. A lot of people with liver issues like non-alcoholic steatohepatitis or just fatty liver from excessive carbohydrate consumption, inactivity would benefit from a ketogenic diet, but yet we need to make the bile from the liver and all that. So it's like you kind of need to restore this digestive health in order to adapt on a ketogenic diet.
For sure, and just knowing it's more than just taking a probiotic. So just sometimes slowly adjusting into a higher fat diet can give your body the tools it needs to be like, okay, this is happening. I'm not going to, induce gut trauma because I had, 6 bacon and eggs to this morning or every morning for a week, and now I feel like crap.
Right.
So slowly introducing certain fats and seeing what fats you do well with. Coconut oil is usually, sometimes it can be a really good starter fat, and then sometimes it can be a really negative starter fat. So it's all about the person and knowing where you are. So just because somebody does really well with 70% fat doesn't necessarily mean start eating 70% fat. Slowly work your way into it, especially depending on how athletic you are, or it's so personal. And I want people to know that, like, it's going to be different for every single person, not because you're broken, but because your genetics and because of your past diets and your metabolism and who you are in this moment is different than who I am in this moment.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. So in an ideal world, a client that comes to you, would you have them start low carb first and then start transitioning over time? Not just go straight up keto, like less than 15 grams of carbs per day?
Yes, I usually start my clients around 20% to 25% carb.
Okay.
If they are, really doing well with it and they feel really good, and a lot of people just naturally feel amazing. You've seen that before.
Sure.
Like for me, it was like, woo.
Right away.
I'm incredible.
Yeah, you're reasonably healthy to start, right?
Yes,
so that's the thing.
100%, yeah. So where you started with, so around 20% carbohydrate, and this is where I get into the mental piece too, is like sometimes just saying you can't have something is the worst thing for a client, and so I have to know that client's personality and how they do, and sometimes saying no carbs will make it worse in 21 days than saying how about we do 20% carbs, and they feel like they can have some and it's actually more sustainable, because all I want is something sustainable for somebody, which is why high fat is so great. We know that, but when they're starting to get into it, they don't know that yet.
Right, yeah, very good point. Okay, let's talk a little bit about carbohydrate timing and exercise. We were talking offline how for me personally, and if I go ultra low carb for a while, my performance sucks, you know, so that's the thing. I mean, theoretically, we're boosting mitochondrial health and we're less free radicals and all that, but like if you can't lift what you're used to lifting, you're like,
what's the point?
What's the point? So let's talk about like what you found to work in terms of carbohydrate cycling. And
yeah, I've played a lot with this. You know, I'm an athlete. Right now I'm not highly competitive, but I have been before, and I just, for me, it's like I wanted so badly for just ketogenic to work because I'm such a believer in high fat, and I just could tell there was too short of workouts, whether it was Fran or anything 7 minutes or less. I just died. I just felt like I was dying, and it makes sense. And so what I decided to do was do a little bit more cyclical with my carbohydrates. So the meal that I had before I worked out, which was about 2 hours before, I would have more sweet potatoes, or I would have more starchy veggies, whatever it was, usually sticking with sweet potatoes as my main source, sometimes white rice. And then post-workout, I would have my most, throughout the day, carbohydrates in my post-workout shake. So usually a 2-to-1 carb to protein ratio.
Okay. In the pre and post, or just post? Okay, got it.
And that worked really well. I really do like that. If I lift heavier, then I actually do a little bit more at dinner as well. So a little bit more carbohydrate, whether it's half a cup of rice or some sweet potatoes, and that does really well for me. So I'm a little bit higher in carbohydrate than most people.
Sure.
But I found that balance where I don't feel like it's messing up my blood sugar. I don't feel like because when I went really high carb, I experimented. I was like, I'm all in. I'm going to try this. I'm going to go high carb, lower fat, see what happens, because I can't attest to it unless I've
do it yourself.
Done it myself.
Totally.
And I just felt so angry all the time, and that's is like the reason why we are on high fat diets.
Right.
So I found that balance between I can eat fat and eat carbs in an appropriate amount, where I don't feel like my blood sugar is off the wall and I am hangry and I'm getting irritable before meals, but I also feel like my performance isn't suffering.
Right, very interesting. So is that like 3 days a week or 5 days a week? Because not every workout's going to be super intense, right? So have you kind of strategically...
You know, what's interesting is I found that if I, say I just ran, or say I did something a little bit more low key, if I don't do a little bit of carbohydrate that day, I always suffer the next day from not eating enough or not eating enough of the right macros.
Okay.
So that day, even though my activity was a little different, I see the benefits the next day in my workouts from the food. So I feel like people are like, God, I felt so good. I worked out 3 times and I wasn't even hungry. And then the next day they're like, I don't want to go to the gym. I'm like, why do you not want to go to the gym? It's not because that day your breakfast sucked. It's not because that day your hydration sucked. I always look at the day before. What did you do the day before that is affecting you today? You overtrained, you underate. And so for me, I live by that. Like, I know that the next day I'm going to lift a little bit more, so I don't want to deplete too much today, because I'll feel that tomorrow.
That is such a great insight. I've never heard anyone articulate that, but I've personally experienced that myself, right?
And
so
I don't have any science, to back it up, but I really do believe in that kind of philosophy.
Yeah, so it, like on a Sunday, a rest day, where you like intermittent fast and all that, and then Monday you're like, you have nothing in the tank.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so it's really interesting.
And we always look at Monday, oh God, I must have not ate enough, I must have not slept enough. It's like, no, let's just look. You can go 48 hours behind and see what is maybe affecting you.
Totally. So would you hypothesize that that's glycogen depletion or?
That's a great point. I think so. I mean, that's the thing that we can get into, though, because there's a lot of ketogenic studies that say there's enough glycogen that's there on a ketogenic diet. But in my opinion, the way I feel does not feel the same way. So yes, that would be my hypothesis if I had to decide, but I don't know any study that.
Yeah, because on a multiple choice test, you go glycogen depletion.
Yes, I would.
Let's kind of finish off with gender differences with keto adaptation and low carb versus. Because I do hear this more in women, like, oh, it didn't work for me, it backfired. What have you heard that as well?
Yes, very much, and I think that's true. And I wonder, one, is that thyroid function? Are they to the point where their thyroid was being tapped into, and now we're depleting carbs, and is that causing some conversion issues from T4 to T3? That's one theory that I had. The other theory is, are they just not able to control blood sugar? Are we getting into this digestion issue, the pancreas not doing its job, and that's like not helping them, basically impeding on their ability to become a fat burner and become a high fat diet user? Or is it just this restriction? Are we so sick of being told what to do and how to look and what to eat, and we just can't do it anymore? And maybe it's more of that side of it. It's
almost like a mental
piece. Emotional, mental piece. But I do find guys do incredible on ketogenic and women don't. There's definitely women that don't, and I think that you can dig into it for each person. And it's just every single person's a little bit different. So maybe that person, it is mental. I have to up their carbs until they can get into that good state where we can maybe play around with it a little bit more. Maybe it's a digestion thing, maybe it's a blood sugar thing.
Yeah.
There's
so
lots
many
of
variables.
reasons. Yeah, I do wonder though, do you have thoughts on the thyroid thing and the hormone thing, if that's causing a piece of that?
Yeah, I have looked at some of the research on that, and I think, the keto, when you're keto adapted, you're just more efficient from an energy perspective. And so I do think there's a reduction in free fraction of hormones, but I don't know if symptoms correlate with that, but I do see people complain to me like, oh my gosh, my TSH is like dropping and my free T3 is lower, but it's like, well, how do you feel? Oh, I feel great. So it's like, are we looking at the labs or are we looking at like how we really feel?
Yes.
And I think we lose sight with, for some reason in society in general, like our own intuition, we're like taught not to trust it and whatever, but we really need to listen.
So true.
Yeah.
Our gut is, well, if your gut is healthy, our gut is usually right.
Right, totally. Yeah, if it feels wrong, it's probably not wrong, right? Super interesting. So let's kind of finish off with the adrenals. And we're talking about like when you're overtraining, people tend to have a hip and like low back issues, which is so fascinating.
Dad, I love this stuff.
Yeah.
So when I got into applied kinesiology and when I actually started going through some severe adrenal issues because I got sick, had a bacteria infection, and was training CrossFit really intensely. It was the Open 2 years ago. I was noticing all these horrible symptoms I've never had before. So sciatic pain, my glutes, I like lost my butt. I was like, what's happening? My butt is gone. And everyone was like, just do more activation. Do more lateral walking, slingshot, this. I was doing it all, and my glutes would not fire. And I finally, through the process of school and through the process of learning applied kinesiology, realized that your glutes and your pelvic floor are directly tied into your adrenals. And when your adrenals aren't functioning, those muscles will turn off. And it's not always the case. There's definitely some people that, yes, we need to work on glutes. Yes, we need to build that strength. But for somebody that was there and then it wasn't, it was so crazy. When I supported the adrenals, my glutes turned back on, my hip pain went away, sciatic pain went away, everything changed. And so my theory of adrenal function, knowing when you get to that point of peeing on the floor, or when you get to that point of my hips are very off, I have a shift in my hip and that's just how it is, or one leg is longer than the other, or I chronically have back pain no matter what I do, let's dig into cortisol levels. Where's your cortisol at? Are you in a hypocortisol state where you're always dipping below where you should? Because you will know, you'll feel like crap every day when you wake up. Or do we have too much cortisol? Are we in this, which a lot of athletes are. You drive cortisol when you train, so how can we get that cortisol to come down post-training? So there's lots of key pieces into that.
Totally. And one thing that comes to mind with that is like pre-workout formulas. A lot of people are taking their pre-workout and a lot of caffeine and getting the adrenal drive. What are your thoughts? Because you're really big into the core nutrition on a pre-workout.
Totally. I think with pre-workout, I'm okay with caffeine for focus and kind of energy. A lot of people depend on it. If you have to have it, don't train. That's number one. Like if you cannot get through your workout without it, you are you're overtraining.
You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, that's part one. If you have to do the training and if you happen to just be a little energy and you like the tingle sensation of pre-workout, I just make sure it has a lot of vitamin C. That's kind of my only, make sure it's low crap, no sucralose, no dyes, no artificial stuff. Your body doesn't need that. It doesn't have time for that. Just lots of vitamin C and keep it as clean as possible.
Yeah, really good tip. Okay, cool. And then so those people, again, just to kind of summarize, the low back pain issue associated with adrenal dysfunction, whether it's hyper or hypo, glandulars, herbs, meditation.
Yeah, great point. So if you're hypo, so if we know on a salivary panel, or you know that you have low cortisol, glandulars are incredible. Glandulars are what are going to drive that up. If we are hyper, we don't want glandulars. We want something like adaptogenic herbs, rhodiola, ashwagandha, ginseng. Vitamin C is great for both. So if you're not sure what pattern you're in and you just want to help support, adaptogenic herbs can be good for both, but I do prefer for hyper adaptogenic herbs, hypo, sticking with glandulars and vitamin C's and B vitamins, those kind of things.
Awesome tips. Cool. So Emily, these are kind of personal questions. We want to get to know you as a practitioner and athlete a little bit better. What's your morning routine?
Oh man, everyone asks me this and I feel like I should have a better answer.
It's
I'm working on it. I wake up and I have coffee. I have like the best, I'm really picky with my coffee, and my coffee for a long time when I went through adrenal issues, I couldn't have it and I was depending on it for life, and now I just really enjoy it and appreciate it. So I always make coffee. I try to NPR is like my go-to. Turn it on my app and do at least 30 minutes of getting some world education because we all need a little bit more of that right now.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about the coffee. Are we putting butter in the coffee, MCTs, and what brand of coffee is it?
Yeah, so I down the street, which I think you should go to. So Stumptown or Crema or Huckleberry Roasters. Denver has so many different good kinds. As organic and non-pesticide as possible. That's always tastes better anyway. And I usually do right now just MCT oil. So MCT oil with my coffee. I'm trying the butter. I'm really lactose intolerant, so even ghee is very tough for me. So I have to stay away from that for now, and I've done pretty well with it. But MCT oil is just like perfect with a little bit of cinnamon and cayenne sometimes.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's one herb, nutrient, or botanical that you just couldn't live without, something, whether it's curcumin or fermented foods, you're stranded on a desert island. You can only bring one thing. Vitamin D and omega-3s are covered. Okay, good. What are you bringing?
I was gonna say. Oh God, that's so tough. I'm obsessed with my oils. So I have like digestive oils that have fennel, and they also, I feel like they calm me down. So I'm obsessed with clove and lime and fennel. Oh God, I use but what about ashwagandha? God, there's so many different ones.
It's a tough one,
I know, all herbs. Do you know I'm in herbal school right now? Did I tell you this?
I did not know that.
And so every time I'm in class, I'm like, this is amazing.
It's my new favorite. Wait. Yeah.
So I don't know that answer to the question. Ask me in a year.
Okay, right. So it's one of those. So it was fennel, clove, ashwagandha.
Yes, any sort of like, God, the earth is so cool. Herbs are powerful. We underestimate what herbs can do for you.
Totally.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I like that. The thinking process there, because they do so many different things.
Yes.
Like, so that's the idea. Okay, so one exercise if you could only train one body part or squat or deadlift or pull up the rest of your life. I know it's a tough one.
No, it's okay. I think I know.
What would you do?
My instinct was dead on. I love pull-ups.
Awesome.
There's nothing more badass, especially for women, to learn how to pull, like physically pulling your own weight, like mentally, physically, emotionally. I just think it's one thing that when every client does it, they feel so good, and I feel so good. And then if it's too easy for you, add weight, and then you feel even better. Like you can never get too good at a pull-up. You just add weight. And so I think pull-up would be my. I mean, it's tough to. Obviously, there's so many moves that we want to do, but pull-up is my go-to.
Awesome. Yeah, and for men, like having a built back, it's really attractive on a woman, right? So
I think the same for men. I think having a strong back is like. It's just everyone needs one. Right.
That's awesome. So people do have questions and tips on that. Do you start with bands so you go through the motions? I know there's a lot to it.
I would try different variations. If you obviously, the more you do pull-ups, the better you'll get at pull-ups. But accessory work can be really key. Like, don't be afraid of bicep curls. Don't be afraid of lat pull-downs at a Globo gym. Don't be afraid of always activate your lats. So do some scap pull-downs before you start. So just hang from the bar, pull and activate, and really get used to that shoulder girdle going back, so that you're not just pulling with all your traps in your ears. And then rows, any kind of rows, and then of course jumping pull-ups, banded pull-ups, then weighted pull-ups would be the next step up from just regular pull-ups. Awesome. And change your grip. Always change your grip.
That's a really good point. So train 2 days a week, is that safe, do you think? Or
for pull-ups?
Yeah.
So any sort of pulling, I always focus 2 heavy pulls, 2 heavy pushes. And so that will keep it balanced to make sure you're not going to cause any shoulder injuries.
Awesome. Okay, so final question here. If you were to bump shoulders with the president of the US or a parliament member of some European country, you had 30 seconds to share with them a lifestyle tip or a health tip that you would want them to implement some policy around. Like what comes to mind? Like that's like your most important tip, like if everyone did this, communities would be healthier. Like what?
Yeah. Well, one, I instantly want to teach people in government because of kids' lunches. So if I could just like somehow affect kids' lunches and the way people think and the reason that ADD and ADHD is so high right now. So I would talk about reading ingredients. I just want you to read every single food that you put in your body, read the ingredients, and understand how much crap is in everything we eat. And hopefully that would implement some sort of change from them. But nobody understands like how something can look so healthy and it's not, and then how something can be said, even just if it says 100 calories, people are like, oh, it's perfect. Right. And then they turn it around and there's 30 ingredients that all are causing severe issues to our body and our blood sugar. So I think that would be the biggest thing, is teaching people what ingredients means and what reading ingredients is, not just the number of fats, not just the number of proteins, but the actual ingredients. Learn what that means and teach other people in your life how to do that. Yeah, really important point. I think we all need to embrace, even as practitioners, you know, you see
if it looks organic and it has non-GMO, you automatically think it's going to be healthy, and you turn around oftentimes the first ingredient is sugar or cane juice, and so important point. So Emily, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate this. If folks want to connect with you online, where can they do so?
Yeah, so all my stuff is Emily Schromm. I have Instagram, YouTube. I have emilyschromm.com is my website. And if you have any questions or if you want to get into this, it's support@emilyschromm.com. I'd love to help people with this.
And you have the M-Pack. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I created a fitness product.
Yeah.
And it's a backpack. I just got sick of strength training on the go in crappy hotel gyms, and I was like in vacation places, and I'm like, I don't want to stay inside and work out. So I created a backpack that turns into a weight training bag. So you take the straps off, you fill it up with water, which you can use in your bathtub or even in the ocean. I filled it up in the ocean, and you can get some like squat cleans, thrusters, deadlifts. It gets heavy too. Like people are like, oh, it gets to 15 pounds. I'm like, no, this thing gets to 60 pounds. This is like no joke. It's like it's cool. It gets heavy. Like it's a really good workout, and I'm a heavy CrossFitter, so I created it selfishly because I wanted to lift when I was traveling, and it's just turned into this amazing, Kickstarter. All made in Colorado. It's just been a really fun thing. So the mpack.com.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll put the links below this description. So guys, thanks so much for tuning in. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Check out Emily's Instagram, and hope you have a great day.